The beauty sector has seen growth even among a tumultuous market. Here to talk about the latest trends in the industry is Neela Montgomery, Global CEO of Orveon, which is the parent company of Bare Minerals, and Laura Mercier. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you guys are a private company, but we have a number of publicly traded beauty companies, and it's sort of been all over the map in terms of what we've been hearing from them. Ulta, the retailer, kind of came out with a disappointing forecast and really shocked many who were covering the company. But then you've had some of the manufacturers and even a competitor like Sephora that have done okay. So what are you seeing in your business amidst that sort of murky environment?
Yes, I mean, we're seeing a very strong Q1 in the prestige cosmetic space. That's where we typically play. Particularly in this sort of skinification, we're very complexion based. So we saw, comps in Q1 that were strong double digit, and double the rate of category growth. But if you sort of talk about the broader market, and this is a sort of, the lipstick effect that people often talk about in beauty, we are seeing that prestige is growing at a much faster rate than the mass beauty market. I think in Q1, it was 9% growth versus 2% for the mass. So those at the higher price points and more luxury positioning and iconic products such as ourselves continue to do well.
And that's really interesting because we have been hearing, not necessarily in beauty, but sort of across consumer discretionary, that some of the lower income consumers they're not seeing as much demand, but it sounds like it's holding up at the upper end. Is that true across geographies as well?
It is for us, but then of course beauty is often distorted by these viral moments that one has. So we had one in January of this year with our Real Flawless foundation, which a lady called Glamzilla did a post, and we had 50 million views, 1.5 million likes, and suddenly it's a sensation. And so this is one thing I really love about beauty. You can go from trend overnight to this sort of sensational sales mix.
And did you guys have a partnership with Glamzilla, or was she just kind of,
No, in fact, that product had existed for a year. It's a beautiful product. I highly recommend it. But it really speaks to this idea of sort of skinification, very breathable, 24 hours hydration. And a very kind of rough and ready post from Glamzilla, who's amazing, kind of kicked off not just in the US a viral sensation, but globally.
And what do you do when that happens? I mean, did you have enough supply to meet the surge in demand that you saw?
Thankfully, we did have a lot of supply from the launch the previous year. Not as much as we would have liked, obviously, because one can't kind of deal with these 500% upsurges. But we're now back in stock and shipping globally. But it just shows how powerful platforms like TikTok have become.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned sort of selling channels as well when you've got to ship that out to people. What are you seeing in terms of that, in terms of demand through, say, department stores or a Sephora versus the direct-to-consumer channel?
Yeah, I mean, beauty has been incredibly resilient in that we're seeing growth in all channels. E-commerce growth is now sort of 12%, but for example, Amazon has become a force in beauty, and we launched Bare Minerals there last year and have doubled our sales already this year. But alongside that, the specialist channels, like you mentioned, Sephora, Ulta, continue to do brilliantly. And obviously, globally, particularly in Asia, we see department stores with double-digit growth.
That's interesting as well, because that had been a channel that had been waning in some ways. You mentioned the prestige is doing well. I'm curious if there is any price sensitivity, right? Have you been able to raise prices? Have you gotten any kind of pushback from customers, or is it just sort of they're happy to pay it?
I think whenever you have iconic products, and we have several that have been around for 30 years, like our original loose foundation or our secret camouflage for Laura Mercier, you have to be careful because customers buy you kind of every couple of months. They love your product and they are very aware of the pricing. But one thing I would say is when you have these heritage iconic products, people really trust you for quality, particularly Laura Mercier. Or with Bare Minerals, we see people who want no tox or limited ingredients, 5 ingredients in our products. So therefore, it's hard to switch. And so you mustn't kind of abuse the customer's trust around that, but you can pass on some inflation, and we have done. We're always very sensitive to what is reasonable for our customers.
Right. Neela, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.